The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by any species. Its walls stretched so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform filled with representatives from 200 alien races. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some floated in liquid tanks. All of them looked down at the small group of humans standing at the lowest level. Ambassador. Una Park had stood in this same spot many times over the past 15 years. She knew every crack in the ancient stone floor. She knew the way sound echoed off the distant walls. She knew exactly how it felt to be looked down upon by creatures who thought themselves superior. Today, something was different. She could feel it in her bones. Council Speaker Vorin stood at the highest platform, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence as he read from a glowing tablet. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that showed his veins beneath the surface. His species, the Korathi, had ruled the council for 3,000 years. They had grown comfortable with power. Resolution 7 Omega has passed with unanimous support from the senior races, Vorin announced. His voice was cold and formal. The 12 human colony worlds in the Kepler systems will be vacated within 60 standard days. These planets will be transferred to the Telluri Dominion for their expansion needs. Una felt her aide, Lieutenant Tae Kim, stiffen beside her. She placed a gentle hand on his arm, telling him without words to stay calm. The humans will be compensated with settlement rights in the Outer Reach, Vorin continued. This matter is concluded. The Outer Reach. Everyone knew what that meant. Dead worlds at the edge of the galaxy. Frozen rocks with no resources. Places where humans would slowly starve and die, far from anyone who might care. 12 billion people. 12 billion human lives, treated like cargo to be moved and discarded. Una had prepared for this moment. She had known it was coming for months. Her intelligence officers had intercepted the secret communications. She had watched the council members make their deals in dark rooms. She had seen the contempt in their eyes when they looked at humanity. For 300 years, humans had been part of the Galactic Union. They had joined as the youngest species, eager to learn and grow. They had followed every rule. They had accepted every unfair treaty. They had smiled through every insult and discrimination. The other races called humans weak. They called them soft. They laughed at human emotions and mocked human culture. They took human resources and gave nothing in return. They treated humanity like children who should be grateful for any scraps thrown their way, and humans had taken it. Year after year, generation after generation, always hoping that patience would earn them respect, always believing that kindness would be returned. It never was. Vorin looked down at the human. Delegation was something like amusement. Does the human ambassador wish to make a statement? Una took a slow breath. Around her, the other human diplomats waited in perfect silence. They had rehearsed this moment. They knew exactly what to do. Does the human ambassador wish to make a statement? Vorin repeated, his tone growing impatient. Una did not speak. Instead, she began to gather her documents from the podium. She moved slowly and deliberately, placing each paper into her case with careful precision. The hall grew quiet. Representatives from 100 worlds watched with confusion. This was not how things were done. When the council made a decision, lesser species were supposed to argue or beg or plead for mercy. They were not supposed to pack their things like they were leaving a boring meeting. Lieutenant Tae stepped forward and handed Una a black envelope. It was made of paper, real paper from Earth. The material was rare and expensive in a galaxy that had abandoned physical documents thousands of years ago. Una placed the envelope on her podium. Then she turned and walked toward the massive doors at the back of the chamber. One by one, every human in the room stood up. There were 47 of them, diplomats, aides, translators, and staff. They did not speak. They did not look back. They simply followed their ambassador in a single silent line. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the enormous hall. It was the only sound. 200 alien races sat in stunned silence, watching the humans leave. Vorin's voice cracked with anger. You cannot simply walk out. This is the Galactic Council. You will show proper respect, Yuna did not stop. She did not turn. She kept walking. The doors were ancient, carved from wood taken from a forest world that no longer existed. They weighed several tons each. It took 4 human staff members to push them open. Cold light from the corridor beyond spilled into the chamber. Yuna stepped through without hesitation. Her people followed. The last human through was Tay, who turned just long enough to meet Voron's 6 eyes. His expression said everything his mouth did not. Then the doors closed with a sound like thunder. For a long moment, nobody in the council chamber moved. The silence was absolute. Finally, a minor representative from a small trading world turned to his neighbor. What just happened? Nobody had an answer. Voron descended from his platform on shaking legs. His servants rushed to assist him, but he pushed them away. He walked to the podium where Yuna had stood and picked up the black envelope. His thin fingers trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of white paper. The message was written in every known galactic language, over 100 translations filling the page. But they all said the same thing. You have chosen. Now so have we. Voron read the words 3 times. His blue skin turned pale. Get me a secure channel to the Korthi High Command, he whispered to his assistant. Now, sir, what is wrong? Voron looked at the empty space where the humans had stood. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The humans did not argue, he said slowly. They did not beg. They did not threaten or make demands. They simply left. Is that bad? Voron crushed the paper in his hand. When a species known for endless talking suddenly goes silent, it means they are done talking. It means they have made their decision. And when humans make decisions, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Across the galaxy, on every human world and station and ship, the same message was being broadcast. Citizens gathered around screens in their homes. Workers stopped in their factories. Children looked up from their schools. President Han Ji-soo appeared on every display, her face calm and serious. My fellow humans, she began. Today, the Galactic Council has shown us their true nature. Today, they have made their choice. And today, we make ours. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of 300 years of patience finally reaching its end. It is time to remind the galaxy who we really are. The transmission ended. The silence that followed was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence before the storm. Admiral Sung Dae-ho had waited 50 years for this day. He stood on the observation deck of Earth Station Prime, watching the blue planet turn slowly below. His gray hair was cut short in military style, and his old uniform still fit perfectly. He had kept himself ready. Behind him, the door opened. President Han Ji-soo walked in, followed by her security team. Madam President, Dae-ho said, not turning from the window. Admiral, it's time. Dae-ho finally turned. His face was carved with deep lines from a lifetime of service. His eyes were dark and calm, like deep water hiding dangerous currents. The Council believes we have no military, he said. They think our fleet is just a few patrol ships and cargo vessels. They believed what we wanted them to believe. They ran inspections every 5 years. They scanned our shipyards. They counted our weapons. They found exactly what we let them find. Dae-ho allowed himself a small smile. It was not a warm expression. Show them. Ji-soo pressed a button on her communicator. Across the solar system, codes were sent. Signals reached hidden receivers in asteroid fields and abandoned moons. Power plants that had been shut down for decades suddenly roared to life in the Oort cloud. At the very edge of human space, massive doors opened in asteroids that the Council had classified as worthless rocks. Inside those rocks were shipyards. Inside those shipyards were ships. Thousands of ships. Dae-ho watched the tactical display as icons appeared one by one. Each icon represented a warship that did not exist in any official record. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, battleships, dreadnoughts. 600 vessels in the Oort yards alone, Ji-soo said. Another 400 in the Kuiper facilities. 300 more spread across our colony systems. Weapons? Everything we were told we could not have. Everything they banned us from developing. Jisu's voice was steady. We smiled and agreed to their restrictions. And then we've built in secret. Deho studied the numbers. Crew. Every human who served in the civilian fleet received military training in simulation. Every engineer who built cargo ships also built warships. Every scientist who worked on medicine also worked on weapons. Jisu stood beside him at the window. We have been preparing for this moment since the day we joined the Union. 300 years, Deho whispered. 300 years of planning, our ancestors knew. They saw how the Council treated younger races. They understood what would eventually happen. So they began to prepare, and each generation continued the work. On Mars, Colonel Minji Kong received her orders. She stood in the command center of New Sol Base, surrounded by officers who had trained their entire lives for a war they hoped would never come. All units. This is Colonel Kang, she broadcast to her fleet. Operation Silent Thunder is active. Report to your vessels immediately. Round her, chaos became order. Soldiers who had pretended to be civilians removed their disguises. Ships that had carried grain and minerals were reconfigured for combat. A civilian colony transformed into a military fortress in a matter of hours. Commander Wu Jinho appeared at her side. He was young, but serious, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Colonel, the Telori occupation fleet is 3 weeks from the Kepler systems. They're moving slow, expecting no resistance. Good, Minji said. Let them come. How many ships do we have in position? 400, hidden in the debris fields around. Kepler 442. Another 200 can arrive within 48 hours of engagement, against their 800. Ginho smiled grimly. They have numbers. We have surprise, technology, and 300 years of anger. On Earth, in a laboratory buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea, Dr. Nari Choi ran final tests on weapons that were supposed to be impossible. She was 70 years old, small and thin, with white hair pulled back in a simple bun. Her hands still moved with the precision of a surgeon as she calibrated targeting systems. The military is asking for a final confirmation, her assistant said. Tell them the stealth systems are ready. The shield generators are ready. The gravity weapons are ready. Nari paused and looked up from her work. Tell them everything is ready. It has been ready for 20 years. We were just waiting for permission. Her assistant hesitated. Do you think we can win? Nari returned to her calibrations. The Council thinks humans are weak because we prefer peace. They think we are stupid because we chose diplomacy over war. They do not understand. Understand what? That we chose peace because we knew what we were capable of. We knew the darkness inside us. We tried so hard to be better than our history. Nare's voice grew quiet. But they pushed us. Year after year, insult after insult, injustice after injustice. They gave us no choice. She finished her work and sealed the device. We are not a peaceful species pretending to be warriors. We are warriors who tried so hard to be peaceful, and now they will see the difference. Back on Earth Station Prime, Admiral Deho reviewed the battle plans one final time. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls, marked with routes and targets and strategic points. The Council has never lost a war, President Jisoo said. Not in 10,000 years. They've never fought humans, Deho replied. Not really. They sent peacekeepers to bully our colonies. They used economic pressure and political tricks. But they have never faced us in true combat. Are you confident? Deho turned to face her. His eyes held a fire that his calm expression could not hide. Madame President, I have studied every war humans have ever fought. I have memorized every battle, every strategy, every victory and defeat in our history. Do you know what I learned? Tell me. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the smartest. We are not the fastest or the longest lived. Deho walked to the window and looked out at the stars. But we are the most stubborn. When we decide something, we do not stop. We do not surrender. We adapt and evolve and overcome. We turn our weaknesses into strengths and our enemies' strengths into weaknesses. He watched as more ships appeared on the tactical display. Emerging from hiding places across human space, the Council has numbers. They have experience. They have technology they have used for thousands of years. Deho's voice dropped to almost a whisper. But they have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. They have grown soft and lazy and arrogant. They think war is about ships and weapons and treaties. And what do you think war is about? Deho smiled, and it was the smile of a predator finally released from its cage. Will. War is about will. And humans have more will than any species in this galaxy has ever seen. We survived ice ages and plagues and nuclear weapons. We survived ourselves. The Council thinks they can break us with a fleet and a piece of paper. He shook his head slowly. They have no idea what they have awakened. The first human warships began to move, dark shapes against the black of space, heading toward a galaxy that had no idea what was coming. The silence was ending. The storm was about to begin. The Talori. Fleet moved through space like a slow river of metal. 800 warships, each one massive and covered with weapons. Their hulls were painted with the bright colors of a species that had never known defeat. Admiral Vornak stood on the bridge of his flagship, drinking warm wine from a crystal glass. He was large even by Talori standards, with thick scales and 4 arms that he used to gesture dramatically when he spoke. "How long until we reach the human colonies?" he asked. 12 hours, Admiral, his navigator replied. Our scouts report no military activity. The humans appear to be evacuating their civilians. All running away. Warnock laughed. As expected, they know they cannot fight us. The other officers joined in the laughter. This would be an easy mission. The humans had no real fleet. They had no weapons worth mentioning. They were soft creatures of flesh and water, barely worth the effort of conquering. Shall we prepare for occupation? A junior officer asked. Yes. Standard procedures. Secure the infrastructure first. Then begin relocating any remaining humans to the transport ships. Vornak took another sip of wine. Try not to damage the farming equipment. The Council wants these worlds productive within 1 year. None of them noticed the faint shimmer in space behind the third moon of Kepler 4, for to be none. Of them detected the ships hiding in the darkness between planets. The human stealth technology was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vice. Admiral Jin Suyun watched the Talori fleet from the bridge of the carrier Silent Thunder. She was small and thin, with short black hair and eyes that held no warmth. She had waited 30 years for this moment. All ships maintain silent running, she ordered. Wait for my signal, Rounder. 400 human warships held position. They were painted black, almost invisible against the void. Their engines were cold. Their weapons were charged, but not active. They were ghosts in the dark. Suyun remembered the day that Talori had come to her homeworld. She had been 12 years old, hiding in a basement while peacekeepers burned her city. They said it was to stop a rebel movement. There was no rebel movement. There was only a Talori governor who wanted human land for his summer home. Her parents had died protecting her. She had survived by staying silent in the darkness for 3 days. Now she commanded that same darkness. Admiral, the enemy fleet is entering the kill zone, Communications Officer Hannah Lee reported. All ships report ready. Suyun looked at the tactical display. The Talor ships were spread out in a standard formation, confident and careless. They had no escorts watching their flanks. They had no scouts checking the shadows. They really think we're nothing, Hannah said quietly. They're about to learn differently.
Unite.
Suyun stood from her command chair. All ships, decloak and engage. Weapons free. In an instant, the darkness came alive. 400 human ships appeared from nothing, their stealth fields dropping as weapons systems activated. The first salvo was devastating. Gravity weapons tore holes in Talori hulls. Energy beams cut through shields that had never been tested against human technology. Admiral Vornak dropped his wine glass. It shattered on the deck, red liquid spreading like blood. What is this? Where did they come from? Unknown contacts, sir? 400? No, 500 human warships? They're everywhere. That's impossible. The humans don't have a fleet. But the evidence was burning in the void around him. Talori ships exploded one after another, their proud hulls torn apart by weapons they could not understand. On the silent thunder, Suyun directed the battle with cold precision. She had studied Talori tactics for years. She knew their weaknesses. Fighter squadrons, target their communication arrays. I want them blind and deaf. Destroyer groups, focus on their engine sections. Cripple them before they can run. Human pilots screamed through space in fighters that moved twice as fast as anything the Talori had ever seen. They wove between enemy ships, striking vital points with surgical accuracy. The Talori tried to fight back. Their weapons fired wildly, hitting nothing but empty space. Human ships seemed to predict every attack, dodging before the triggers were even pulled. "Admiral, they're reading our targeting systems?" A Talori officer screamed. "They know where we're shooting before we shoot." Vornok could not understand. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be weak. They were not supposed to have technology that made his fleet look like children playing with toys. "All ships, retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to the jump point." But the human fleet had already moved to block their escape. What remained of the Talori fleet was surrounded, trapped in a cage of fire and death. Suyun watched the enemy admiral's ship try to break through the encirclement. Part of her wanted to destroy it. Part of her wanted revenge for every human life the Talori had taken. But she had her orders. "Let that one through," she commanded. "And those two cruisers? Damage them, but let them escape." Hannah looked at her in surprise. "Ma'am, they need to carry the message back to the council. They need to show them what happened here." Suyun's eyes were hard. Fear is a weapon too. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, the Talori occupation fleet existed only as debris. 797 ships destroyed. 12 billion humans avenged. 3 Talori vessels limped away through a gap that had been deliberately left open. Their crews watched in horror as human ships held position, making no move to follow. The message was clear. "We could have killed all of you. We chose to let you live." Suyun opened a broadcast channel, knowing that every ship in the system, every relay station beyond would carry her words. "This message is for the Galactic Council. Kepler 442 was your first lesson. There will be more. You wanted war with humanity?" She paused, letting the silence stretch. "Congratulations. You have our full attention." On the flagship's bridge, Hannah began compiling the battle data. Casualty reports came in from across the fleet. The numbers were almost unbelievable. Admiral final count. Enemy ships destroyed, 797. Human ships lost, 11. Human casualties, 231. Suyun closed her eyes for a moment. 231 human lives. Each one precious. Each one remembered. "Prepare the fleet for the next operation," she said. "The war isn't over. It's just beginning." Across the galaxy, surviving Talori ships arrived at Council Prime. Their footage was played before the assembled representatives. 800 ships annihilated in less than an hour. A fleet that should have conquered 12 worlds. Destroyed by an enemy that was not supposed to exist. Speaker Vorin watched the recording in silence. He saw the human ships appear from nowhere. He saw weapons that tore through Talori armor like paper. He saw the calm, controlled precision of an enemy that had been preparing for this moment for longer than he had been alive. "Call an emergency session," he ordered. "Contact every military commander in the Union. The humans are not what we thought they were." His assistant hesitated. "What are they?" Vorin turned off the display. The last image frozen on the screen was Vice Admiral Jin Suyun, her dark eyes staring directly into the camera. "They are exactly what we were afraid they might be," Vorin whispered. "They are what we tried to prevent them from becoming." He looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere in that darkness, human ships were moving, planning, coming. "We created this," he said to no one. "We pushed them and mocked them and took everything from them, thinking they would never push back. And now?" He did not finish. He did not need to. The humans had pushed back, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, the galaxy had changed. Human fleets moved through council space like water through broken stone. Finding every weakness and exploiting it without mercy, General Park Jun-ho stood on the surface of Nexian Prime, the second most important world in the Galactic Union. His boots left prints in the purple sand as he watched the last enemy stronghold surrender. White flags flew from every tower. "General, the planetary governor is asking to negotiate terms," his aide reported. "Tell him terms are simple. All weapons surrendered. All prisoners released. All stolen human property returned." Junho looked at the alien city stretching before him. "And we keep the peace. No looting. No revenge attacks. We are not conquerors."
"How, sir?"
"Some of our soldiers lost family to Nexian raids. They want justice." Junho turned to face his aide. His face was hard, but his eyes held something like sadness. "Justice is not the same as cruelty. We take their military power. We break their ability to threaten us again. But we do not become the monsters they thought we were." He started walking toward the surrender ceremony. "That is how we win the real war. The war for what we are." Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated. Human forces struck fast and hard, destroying military targets with overwhelming force. But they did not bomb cities. They did not attack civilians. They did not take slaves or steal resources. The aliens did not understand. Every species they had ever conquered would have done those things. Every species they had ever fought would have taken revenge. But humans were different, Captain. Yan Sora guided her destroyer unyielding through the debris field of another victory. She had fought in 12 major battles in 3 months. Her crew was exhausted but proud. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from that Volari transport," her sensor officer reported. "They took damage in the crossfire. Life support is failing." Sora did not hesitate. "Move to assist. Prepare medical teams, ma'am. They're enemy civilians. They're people who are going to die if we don't help them." Sora looked at her officer with calm certainty. The war is against their military, not their children. "Send the rescue teams." 2 hours later, 300 Volari civilians were safe aboard human ships, receiving medical care from human doctors. Many of them cried when they realized they would not be harmed. They had been told that humans ate their prisoners. "Why are you helping us?" an elderly Volari asked through a translator. The human medic, wrapping his wounds, smiled gently. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because someday this war will end, and we want to be able to live with ourselves when it does." Word spread through the alien worlds. Humans were terrifying in battle, but merciful in victory. They destroyed armies but saved civilians. They broke governments but helped rebuild infrastructure. It was confusing. It was unprecedented. And it was slowly breaking the Council's will to fight. Back on Earth, Dr. Nari Choi worked without rest in her laboratory. New weapons were needed. New defenses. New technologies to keep human soldiers alive.
"Doctor."
"You should sleep," her assistant said. "I will sleep when the war is over." Nara's wrinkled hands moved across her workstation, adjusting formulas and designs. "Every day this continues. More of our people die. Every improvement I make saves lives. The Council has offered to negotiate. They say they're willing to discuss. They're willing to discuss the same lies they've told for 300 years. Did not look up from her work. They do not want peace. They want time to rebuild their fleets. They want time to find weaknesses in our technology." She finally paused, her old eyes focusing on something far away. "I had a daughter once. She was a pilot. She died in one of their peacekeeping actions 20 years ago." Nari's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "I promised myself that day that no more of our children would die because we were weak. No more would die because we trusted creatures who saw us as insects to be crushed." She returned to her work. "So I will not sleep. Not until they can never hurt us again." The war continued. The Volari, the Karathi, the Dreth, the Tellurial, the great powers of the Council combined their remaining forces for a massive counterattack. 2,000 ships, the largest fleet assembled in 1,000 years. They met the human fleet at the Neuraxis Corridor, a strategic choke point that controlled access to the inner systems. Admiral Sun Deho commanded the human forces personally. He stood on the bridge of his flagship Humanity's Answer, watching the enemy fleet approach. "They outnumber us 3-1, Commander Wu Jinho observed. "Numbers mean nothing if they cannot use them properly." Deho studied the enemy formation. "Look at how they move. Each species keeps to itself. The Volari stay with Volari. The Karathi stay with Karathi. They do not trust each other and us." Deho smiled. "We are one people, one fleet, one purpose. We move as a single organism while they stumble over each other." The battle lasted 18 hours. It was brutal and bloody, the worst fighting since the war began. Human ships died by the dozens. Alien ships died by the hundreds. In the end, the Council's combined fleet broke. Not because they were outnumbered. Not because their ships were weak. They broke because their alliance was built on fear and convenience, while humanity fought with the unity of true purpose. After the battle, Admiral Deho walked through the medical bay, visiting wounded soldiers. He stopped at each bed, speaking quietly with each person, learning their names, hearing their stories. "Admiral," a young pilot said, her arm wrapped in bandages, "did we win?" Deho sat beside her bed. "We won this battle. The war is almost over. What happens then?" "Then we make sure this never happens again." He looked at the rows of wounded humans, the price of victory written in blood and pain. "We didn't want this war. We did everything we could to avoid it, but they gave us no choice. Will they try again? Once they rebuild?" Deho considered the question carefully. "Perhaps. There will always be those who see our kindness as weakness, who think our mercy means we are soft." He stood and straightened his uniform. "But they will remember this war. They will remember what happened when they pushed us too far. And maybe that memory will be enough to keep the peace." He continued his walk through the medical bay, speaking with each soldier, honoring each sacrifice. Outside, in the darkness of space, the human fleet regrouped. They had won the battle, but the war was not finished. The Council had not surrendered. Their government still stood. Their leaders still defied humanity. That would have to change, Admiral. Deho returned to his bridge and opened a channel to all human forces. "All units. Set course for Council Prime. It's time to end this." The fleet moved as one. A river of steel and fire flowing toward the heart of galactic power. The reckoning was coming, and the Council had no more cards. To play. Council Prime was the oldest inhabited world in the galaxy. For 10,000 years, it had been the center of civilization, the seat of power that ruled over 200 species across 1,000,000 star systems. Its cities were ancient and beautiful, filled with monuments to victory and dominance. Now, human ships filled its sky. Speaker Vorin stood at the window of his chamber, watching the dark shapes move against the stars. 5,000 council ships had gathered to defend the homeworld, every vessel that could still fly, every crew that could still fight. Against them came 2,000 human warships. The numbers favored the Council. But Vorin had seen the battle reports. He had watched recording after recording of human ships dancing through enemy fleets like ghosts, striking with impossible precision, surviving attacks that should have destroyed them. Numbers meant nothing against an enemy like this, Speaker. "They are hailing us," his assistant said. Vorin turned from the window. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral Sung Deho. The old human looked tired but calm, like a man who had carried a heavy burden for a long time and was finally ready to set it down. "You know why we are here? You want to destroy us? To take revenge for 300 years? No." Deho shook his head slowly. "If we wanted destruction, we would have brought weapons that could crack your planet's crust. We have them. We chose not to use them. Then what do you want? We want you to surrender. We want you to acknowledge that the old way is over. We want you to accept humanity as equals." Deho's eyes were steady. We do not want to exterminate you. We do not want to rule you. We simply want to live in peace, without the threat of another resolution, 7 Omega hanging over our heads. Vorin was silent for a long moment. And if we refuse, then we will destroy your fleet. We will occupy your stations. We will dismantle your military infrastructure piece by piece until you have no choice but to accept. Deho leaned forward. But people will die. Many people on both sides. We are offering you a chance to avoid that. Take it. You asked me to surrender the honor of 1,000 generations. I am asking you to trade your pride for your people's lives. Deho's voice softened. I have watched too many humans die in this war. I have signed too many letters to families who will never see their loved ones again. I do not want more death. Not human, not Karathi, not anyone. But I will do what I must to protect my people. The transmission ended. Vorin stood alone in his chamber, the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. He gave the order to fight. The Battle of Council Prime was the largest engagement in recorded galactic history. 5,000 ships against 2,000, fighting across 1,000,000 kilometers of space around the ancient homeworld. Admiral Deho commanded from the center of the human formation. Around him, ships executed maneuvers they had practiced for generations. They moved in perfect coordination, each vessel knowing its role, each crew trusting their brothers and sisters. Carrier groups, launch fighters, destroyer screens, advance to contact. Battleships prepare main weapons. The human fleet flowed forward like a wave, breaking against the Council defense and washing through the gaps. Colonel Minji Kong led the fighter wings. Her small ship weaving through a storm of energy beams and missiles. She had started this war as a fleet commander. Now she flew with her pilots, sharing their danger. All wings, focus on their command ships. Cut the head off the snake. Her fighters screamed through the enemy formation, striking bridge towers and communication arrays. Council ships fell into chaos as their commanders died or lost contact with their fleets. Captain Yan Sora brought her destroyer unyielding against a Korathi, battleship 3 times her size. Her crew had patched the ship together after a dozen battles. It held together through skill and prayer. Target their engines. Cripple, don't kill. They might surrender. The destroyer's weapons tore through the battleship's rear section. The great vessel spun out of control, its crew abandoning ship in escape pods. Mark them for rescue, Sora ordered. Even enemies deserve to live. Vice Admiral Jin Soo-yoon coordinated the overall battle from her flagship, tracking hundreds of engagements simultaneously. Her cold efficiency had won a dozen victories. Today, it would win the war. Concentrate fire on Sector 7. Their formation is breaking. Human ships converged, their weapons creating a wall of death that nothing could survive. Council vessels tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Council's combined fleet existed only as wreckage. 4,000 ships destroyed or captured. 1,000 years of military dominance ended in a single day. Human losses were heavy. 300 ships destroyed. 15,000 lives lost. Admiral Deho read each name in the casualty report, honoring the dead with his attention. But they had one. Ambassador Yuna Park returned to the council chamber. It was the same chamber she had walked out of 8 months earlier, but everything had changed. The seats that had once held arrogant representatives now held broken delegations. The platform where Vorin had announced Resolution 7 Omega now held the terms of humanity's peace. Yuna walked to the podium slowly, her footsteps echoing in the silent hall. Lieutenant Tay walked beside her, his face showing nothing. Vorin waited at the speaker's platform. He had aged decades in the past months. His 6 eyes were dull with defeat. "You have won," he said. "What now? Will you destroy us? Enslave us? Take revenge for every wrong we did to you?" Yuna looked up at the assembled representatives. She saw fear in their eyes. Fear of humans. Fear of what would come next. She could destroy them. She could take everything. 300 years of humiliation demanded payment. But that was not who humans were. We want three things, Una said. First, equal representation in the council. One species, one vote. No more senior races and junior races. Voron nodded weakly. Agreed. Second, fair treaties. Trade, territory, resources, everything, negotiated honestly, without threats or manipulation. Agreed. Third, true partnership. Not tolerance. Not acceptance, partnership. We work together to build a better galaxy for all species. Voron stared at her. That's all? You don't want territory? Reparations? Punishment for those who wronged you? We want peace. Una's voice was firm. We want to be able to live without fear. We want our children to grow up in a galaxy where they are respected, not despised. We could take more. We could take everything. But that would make us what you feared we were, and we are better than that. She placed the peace document on the podium. Sign it. End this. Let us build something new together. Voron's hand trembled as he pressed his seal to the document. Around the chamber, one by one, the other delegations did the same. It was over. Una walked out of the chamber with Tay beside her. Outside, the sky of Council Prime was filled with human ships, dark shapes against the alien stars. Do you think it will last? Tay asked. The peace. Una considered the question. Maybe, maybe not. There will always be those who want to test us again, who will think our mercy means we've grown weak. She looked up at the ships that had fought and died to bring them to this moment. But they will remember this day. They will remember what happened when they pushed humanity too far. She smiled, and for the first time in months, there was warmth in it. And maybe that will be enough. Behind them, the galaxy began to heal. It would take years, generations. But for the first time in 300 years, humans could look at the stars without fear. They had walked out in silence. They had returned in thunder, and the universe would never forget.